Okay, what I have here is a 1991 Cadillac Deville. I've had this car for, well, since day one when I bought it new. So I've had it for 27 years, and it's been a pretty good old car. I just keep driving it, keep beating on it. It's got 162,000 miles on it. It's got the 4.9 liter engine. And what the issue is here today, two things. I wanted to try to make the fuel economy better, and I wanted to, lots of people have this car, have had it for a while, know about the sail on or the coasting problem that it has. And what happens is, like if you're going down the road, even if you're going up a slight grade, after you get started, say you're going 25, 30 miles an hour and you let off on the gas pedal, the thing just keeps going. It's a misadjustment of the idle speed control and of the throttle position sensor. Okay, so on this 4.9 engine, this right here is the idle speed controller. Okay, and it consists of this little stepper motor, and then inside or down at the bottom you can't really get to the plug to unplug it. Anyway, there's two T25 Torx bolts, that screws that hold it in, and then also this plunger assembly here, and then it has a little bolt screw that comes up and hits the throttle to open and close the throttle body plate. And then in the very back here, kind of hard to get to. Let's see if I can grab a flashlight, make it a little more light. Back in here, on the back side, that is the throttle position sensor. Okay, so it has three wires going to it on the little connector, and those two screws. Those, by the way, are T25 screws also. And you loosen that down, or you loosen those two screws. When you get the screws loose, if you want a higher voltage reading, you push down on this connector here. You can push down, and that causes it to rotate, and that'll make the voltage higher. Or you can pull up on the connector or push down on the other side, and that makes the voltage decrease. So what the problem is the misadjustment of these two. Now, I found on a website, it was Cadillac forums, and there was a guy, I mean, I've had trouble with this car for years like this, never really knew what was going on, and I got to a website, this Cadillac forums. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff talking about how to adjust this stuff, but finally somebody here kind of put me on to it was a sale on finally adjusted Cadillac forums. Okay, so just search sale on TPS adjustment finally solved. This guy Keys 85, okay, looks back in 2016 is when he posted this. But anyway, this helped me out immensely. This guy obviously knows a lot more than I know. The only thing is, he was working with a Cadillac Deville, and it appears that he was able to do this with degrees of the angle of that throttle position sensor. And on my DeVille, I really can only figure out how to do it by voltage. But what I did is I used some Seafoam throttle plate cleaner and some just regular old throttle plate cleaner. But I used this Seafoam top engine cleaner So what you do, you get the car up, you get it up to temperature, and you spray that stuff down into the throttle body, and you keep spraying it as it's running, okay? You let it run and run and run, and finally use up the whole bottle, and you let it all get sucked in there. And then you turn the car off and let it set for about, I let it set for 10 minutes. It says 5 minutes on the bottle. But then I started the car up, and I did this outside the garage, okay? And man, it just white smoke everywhere. I mean, and it smoked for probably 20 minutes. I mean, nasty, bad white smoke. So anyway, it's kind of, you know, I guess getting rid of that carbon and stuff. So that, you know, worked out well. Just follow the directions on the can and do it outside. Don't do it in the garage, well ventilated. Another thing I use too is this carbon throttle body cleaner, Valvoline. It's what Royal King had. And I cleaned it super well. You know, I held open and I cleaned the bottoms of the plates. You know, I did not take the throttle body off. I just did it all with a little brush. And I sprayed it in there, took a brush, cleaned it, and then I let I sopped up the excess down on the bottom with a paper towel. And anyway, got that real clean. Old car, I just keep driving it, keep beating on it. It's got 162,000 miles on it. It's got the 4.9 liter engine. And what the issue is here today, two things. I wanted to try to make the fuel economy better, and I wanted to, lots of people have this car, have had it for a while, know about the sail on or the coasting problem that it has. And what happens is, like if you're going down the road, even if you're going up a slight grade, after you get started, say you're going 25, 30 miles an hour and you let off on the gas pedal, the thing just keeps going. It's a misadjustment of the idle speed control and of the throttle position sensor, okay? So on this 4.9 engine, this right here is the idle speed controller, okay? And it consists of this little stepper motor, and then inside or down at the bottom you can't really get to the plug to unplug it. Anyway, there's two T25 Torx bolts, that screws that hold it in, and then also this plunger assembly here, and then it has a little bolt screw that comes up and hits the throttle to open and close the throttle body plate. And then in the very back here, kind of hard to get to. Let's see if I can grab a flashlight, make a little more light. Back in here, on the back side, that is the throttle position sensor. Okay, so it has three wires going to it on the little connector, and those two screws. Those, by the way, are T25 screws also. And you loosen that down, or you loosen those two screws. When you get it the screws loose, if you want a higher voltage reading, you push down on this connector here. You can push down, and that causes it to rotate, and that'll make the voltage higher. Or you can pull up on the connector or push down on the other side, and that makes the voltage decrease. So what the problem is the misadjustment of these two. Now, I found on a website, it was Cadillac forums, and there was a guy, I mean, I've had trouble with this car for years like this, never really knew what was going on, and I got to a website, this Cadillac forums. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff talking about how to adjust this stuff, but finally somebody here kind of put me on to, it was a sale on finely adjusted Cadillac forums. Okay, so just search sale on TPS adjustment finally solved. This guy Keys 85, okay, looks back in 2016 is when he posted this. But anyway, this helped me out immensely. This guy obviously knows a lot more than I know. The only thing is he was working with a Cadillac Deville, and it appears that he was able to do this with degrees of the angle of that throttle position sensor. And on my Deville, I really can only figure out how to do it by voltage. So there may be a different way. He may know what he's doing. I was able to make it work, but I was using voltage. So back there on that throttle position sensor, there's 3 wires going to this thing, and basically 2 of them are black and 1 of them are white. And all I did was skin back the insulation, put my meter on the 2 black wires, and like right now the engine's off and the vehicle's sitting here, the ignition is on, and I'm reading 0.9 volts. And what you're going to want to do, and we'll do that here shortly, we're going to adjust this thing so the voltages are from 0.55 with it fully with the throttle position idle speed controller, idle speed controller is all the way pulled in, and then it's setting on the minimum speed screw, or it's fully extended, and then that's going to go up to a voltage of 1.20. Alright, so anyway, I've already done this, and what happened to me is I took the car out a couple different times. I've driven it now, and my gas mileage has went from, on average on the highway, of around 17, 18. And I just got back from a trip, it was 21 miles a gallon. So it's still, I remember when the car was new, I mean, this crazy thing got like 25, 26, 27 miles to the gallon. But I haven't had that for years, and I don't know when this sail on problem started, but it's been going on for 5 or 6 years, because when my boys used to drive this car to school, they would complain of it, just wanting to idle. It's like it idled too fast and it wouldn't slow down. But then once you get like under 5 miles an hour, the engine idles right back. So there's something in the PCM power control module that, I don't know how it works, but it works kind of funky. But I think what the first thing you need to do is, or what I did, is time the car, okay? Now in that article that was on the Cadillac forums, that guy seemed to have done a lot of work, and the normal timing for this car is 10 degrees, okay? So he recommended setting it up to like 12 to 14. So the first thing I did, I took my timing light here, and I hooked it up, and lost my negative feed there. I hooked it up and timed the car to, it's about 12, 13 degrees. Okay, so that's the very first thing you got to do, as he said in his article, is get the timing right, because that kind of affects the speed of the motor and maybe the airflow ratio. I'm not sure, but I think it's the right thing to do is to set the timing first. So to set this timing up, to do it right, you get your time meter, and down on the, I'm sure you won't be able to see this, we might be able to see it with the flashing light. Way down in there is the timing mark. Yeah, I guess you can see it with this camera. And I marked on the crank with a white marker where the timing point was. So, and to set the timing, what you have to do is you can either get underneath of the dash, and you can, I think it's pins 1 and 2, you can jumper pins 1 and 2, or you can go into the diagnostics here on the dash and set the spark advance to take off the automatic spark advance and make it a fixed spark. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the car on, start it up, okay, and then we're going to go into the computer here to get into it. So you're going to hit the off and the warmer button. You're going to hold that in till the display comes up, kind of goes into a full test pattern. Okay, once that display comes up, then you can go into the PCM overrides is what's called. Now I just happen to have the factory manual. In the factory manual, this is in section 6E-8. Okay, so when it comes here to PCM overrides, and then what I'm going to do is on the next page it talks about 5.9 fixed spark. Okay, but to get into this mode, you have to push that off and warmer button. Okay, and then when you get to that, then you press the high button. Okay, the display will display 7.0, and when you hit the display button, or the high button, sorry, it will go to E95. Okay, once you get to E95, as the book says here, you have to hit the Econ and warmer buttons at the same time. So I'm going to hit Econ and warmer, and that puts the display at E5.0. Okay, then what that does is that puts you in this override mode, and according to the manual, you'll hit the high or low buttons to get to 5.9. So I'm going to hit the high button, and there I go to 5.1, 5.2. I'm hitting it again. You got to kind of wait. You can't do it very fast because the display just doesn't take it. And you're going through different tests. Okay, so there's 5.6, 5.7. I'm waiting for it. I'm going to push it again. 5.9. Okay, so right now the car is telling it to be at 20 degrees advanced. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the cooler button, and what that's going to do is that's going to put it down to 10 degrees. Okay, so when I hit that button, the cooler button, now the computer has set the advancement at 10 degrees. And basically what that's doing is that's saying, okay, the computer thinks it's at 10 degrees. Now, mechanically, I want you to adjust it to 10 degrees. Okay? Okay, so hang on for 1 second. Okay, had to fix my light. So anyway, now I've got my timing light set up, and with that timing, it's kind of in a fixed mode right now at 10% or 10 degrees. So it's not running quite normal, and it's kind of surging and searching. But right now, as you can see, the car typically tries to keep the RPM at 600 RPM, and my light is on. Now, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but there's my white mark, okay, and it is at about 12% right now. So you may or may not be able to see that. So, but that is my timing. And one thing here too in the manual, I'll show you what the timing marks, in case you don't have this. In the manual it shows what the timing looks like. Like here is, this is what you're looking at down here. There's the hole where some kind of magnetic probe goes in. But the first one's 0, 4 degrees, 8 degrees, 12, 16, and 20. So, right now I'm somewhere between that 12 and 16 degrees. Okay, but I'm shooting for about 14 degrees. All right. So, and I think if you Google this, you should be able to find that on the web. And you got to know what those marks are. And on the distributor, as you are timing it, I've already done this, so I'm not going to do it again. But This particular distributor wrench is what I have. I don't know if it even has a name on it. It's 15 millimeter, and I don't know, VIM-V118 is the number. I don't know where I got it at. I don't know if I got it online, AutoZone, Advance. But anyway, on the distributor, the pull-down bolt is underneath there, and you can get that without taking anything apart. You just use that wrench. If you don't have that wrench, you may have to do something else. But as you're looking down on top of the distributor, if you turn it clockwise, looking down, that advances the timing. If you turn it counterclockwise, that retards the timing. Okay? So I had to advance mine. Originally I had it set up to 10 degrees, but I did increase it as per that guy's article. Now another thing, my sensor, I've got a pickup here. I've got it on the number 1 cylinder. So the number 1 cylinder is the front cylinder here on the car. So that's number 1. So anyway, I have adjusted the timing. The timing is set at 14 degrees. Now over there on my throttle position sensor, right now it's reading about 6.685 volts. Really doesn't matter right now, but typically the computer, when it's up to temperature and everything, it tries to keep it at 600 RPM. You can see right now it's hunting around because it's in that fixed mode. So now, that's the first thing you got to do is time it. So I'm going to come over here, I'm going to hit the auto button on the display, and that takes it out of troubleshooting mode, out of program mode. And now the car is able to adjust the timing on its own. Okay, so as you can see here, before it was sitting there hunting around, pecking, and now it's running pretty darn good, 622 RPM, and everything sounds good. All right. So now the next thing that has to happen is, according to the technical service bulletin. Now there is a procedure, that's another thing. In the manual, in the shop manual, there is a procedure of how to adjust that throttle position sensor. And I believe it is wrong, or it has been changed, because that is part of the problem that causes the sail on, or the coasting problem, is the procedure is wrong. So as per that guy's article, there's a new technical service bulletin. I've never seen it, but it was called T-9344. So it came out in 1993, number 44, I guess. But it says you could go to the dealer or you could get it off the web. I tried to find it on the web. Everywhere you had to pay for it, so I thought, nah. So anyway, in it, he described that the key to the thing is to set the minimum air screw to 400 to 450 RPMs, okay? And at 450 RPMs, you adjust the throttle position sensor to 0.55 volts, and then when you extend the idle speed screw, when you extend this thing all the way out, then you're going to want to adjust it to 1.2 volts. All right. So now the car's up, it's warm, it's timed, and the next thing to do is to retract the idle speed controls plunger. Now the way you can do that, once again, you go into the car, okay, and we go right back to where we were before, and like I said, in the manual, it tells you that same page, 60-8, PCM overrides, okay, and it has dash 5.3 is idle speed control motor, okay. So what you're going to do is, once again, I'm going to put it in, hold the off and the warmer buttons, and it kind of goes into a test mode. Now another thing on this display center over here, right now I'm getting an E73 code. I should look that up, but we'll worry about it later. And it might have something to do with this, but I'm not sure what it is, but I can live with it right now. So with this, it gets to the 7.0, And then the next thing I need to do is push the high button, okay? And then that changes the display over here to E95. And then I push the Econ and warmer buttons. And then that changes the display to E50, which starts these overrides. And then I hit the high button till I get to 5.3. So I'm hitting the high button. Like I say, you can't hit it too fast or it misses it. So there's 5.3. Now right now it comes up to this default 50%, and really it just means that the car has control of it. But what you do is you hit the cooler button. I'm going to push the cooler button, and when I do that, it's going to set this down to 0. It's going to fully retract that plunger. Now, what I have done before this, I've retracted the plunger and I set the RPMs down to 425, 450 RPM. Now the engine may die on me. See, the plunger is pulling in, it's away, and it's 450 RPM. Now the engine is probably going to die, okay? It did before, but that's okay. Your car will never get to this position. What will happen is the computer will take over and this idle speed control will push it out of there. But right now it's getting to 0 position and it's fully retracted, okay? Now in my case I have a huge gap. I mean, that thing's 3/16 of an inch, maybe even a 1/4 inch gap, all right? Now in the book, you know, they were talking about this gap of 20 or 30%. I don't know. I don't quite understand that. I'm going to tell you what I did, and you can go from there. But I just let this thing pull itself in. I set my RPM to 450 RPMs, and that is on this minimum screw. You can see right in behind here. By the way, this is a T20 Torx Allen wrench. I got this set. I just went and bought it at Advanced Auto. It was like $9. Autocraft. This is a T20. Okay, so this T20 fits this idle screw, and this idle screw, you can barely see it, but it's buried right back. See the tip of my Torx, and right in there is that screw head. And if you just move that thing just right, you can get in it and you can turn this thing. Okay, so they talk about special tools and stuff. Just this little cheap tool right here does it. T20, you stick it in there and you adjust that. See, now with that plunger back, this throttle is against, kind of use this as a pointer, the throttle now is touching, coming back against the minimum speed. Okay, so it's a mechanical stop there. So I've adjusted it to 450 RPMs, and it kind of wanted to die, and it actually did die, but that's okay. Because now what we're going to do is we're going to adjust the sensor in the back to the throttle position sensor here, clear in the back. We're going to adjust that to 0.55 volts. Okay, now I've done that already, and as you can see, it's actually off a little bit. It's 0.54 now. Okay, but I'm going to live with that because I've taken it out for a test drive a couple times. It's pretty darn close. So to adjust that sensor, what you have to do, get my light here a little better, what you have to end up doing is, come on light, back here at the sensor, these two screws, one here and one here, are T25. That same set of little Allen wrenches I got, I was able to take, or torque wrenches, loosen those two screws. Now you got to screw them out like a lot, a good bit. And when you screw that out, like I say, you push down on this connector. Once you get it loose, you push down. That'll increase your voltage, or you can pull up on it or push down on the other side, but really what you're doing is rotating it. And what this thing wants to do is when it's on that mechanical stop, it wants to see that 0.55 volts. Now the big difference in the manual and this new technical service bulletin, it appears what the difference is the original manual said to set the RPMs to 550 RPMs, and the new technical service manual or bulletin says to set it to 400 to 450, I believe. So I just set it at 450, and then I adjusted this to the 0.55 volts. Here again, I adjusted it to 5.5. I even repeated it a couple times. Why it's off a little bit now, I don't know, but I'm not going to worry about it. So you get that adjusted, 0.54 volts, or 0.55, sorry. And then what you're going to do is you're going to come back to the car, to the diagnostic panel, and right now it's at 0 full retraction, and I'm going to hit the warmer button. Okay, everybody can see this or not, but I'm going to hit the warmer button, and when I do that, it changes this thing to 99%. So what that's doing is that pushed that idle speed control all the way out. Okay, so here's a picture of it now. See, this plunger was all the way back in. Now it's all the way off, out, and I don't know if you can see it, but right here on my finger, you can kind of see down in there, it's way off the idle screw now. Okay, so now the idle speed control should be at 1.2 volts. Okay, it's 1.208, good enough. Now if that was off, okay, what you do is you screw this nut here, or the bolt, you screw it in or out. So if it needs to go a lower voltage, you screw it into the plunger. If it needs a higher voltage, you screw it out. And what that does is you move your throttle here, okay, you know, there's my voltage. It knows, you know, it's showing that the throttle is, you know, is changing. See, at full throttle, okay, there's 4.3 or 4.5 volts at full throttle. Okay, so now what happened when I moved that, the plunger went in. Okay, so see, now it went back to 0.9 volts. So what you got to do, you got to be careful as you make adjustments on that screw. I don't know exactly what it does, but it will change it. Now see, I come back here in the car and it put it to 0.5 or 50%. So I'm going to hit the warmer button again. Now it went back to 99. Now what makes the car do that, I have no idea, but somehow the module takes over. But if I come back out here and my meter just turned off, went to sleep, put it back here on volts, 1.21, okay? So it pretty much come back to where it needs to go. So that is basically it. Okay, so this technical service bulletin, if you happen to have the manual, it tells you in there how to do this, but the values are wrong. The book says, the original manual, 550 RPMs, and it said at the 0 point, at the closed, it was like 0.45 to 0.55, and at the open, it was like 1.15 to 1.2. Well, supposedly, I haven't seen it, but in this Cadillac Forums article that the guy wrote, which he did a great job, you know, he said that the new service bulletin said 400 to 450 RPMs, and the 0, the bottom, the retracted position was 0.55, and the full out position was 1.2. So basically, that's all I had to do right there. Now once you get that done, and you can sit there and you can move it back and forth, 0 to 100% with this little diagnostic panel. So right there, we're still at 99. Now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to hit the cooler button. Okay? So when I hit the cooler button, it goes back in. And I'm going to just look at this motor, why this thing is closing. You know, I'm really just taking a picture here, so somebody, if you don't have the manual, you can read So here it shows you the warmer button. It'll go to 99. You hit the cooler and it'll retract and it'll go to 0. And when you tell that thing to retract, it takes, in the article it said it would take about 20 seconds. Well, in reality, on my car, this is a brand new ISC. I bought it at Advanced Auto. It was about 80 bucks. But here you can see it's slowly pulling itself in. Now, the manual says it should do this in about 20 seconds. Well, for me, it is taking about 50 seconds. That doesn't really seem to hurt anything. Now it's going to get here about 0.55 and it's going to stop. Okay, right there, 0.551. So what's happening now is it's pulling away and it's starting to make a gap here at this screw. You'll see, we can watch this. It'll get bigger and bigger because it's pulling in the plunger, but I've come against the mechanical stop, the idle screw, the mechanical idle screw, and it won't go any lower. So basically that's 450 RPM if the engine was running and you know, the sensor is reading 0.55 volts. Okay, so now you can move that back and forth. You can take the plunger in and out as many times as you want. Like I say, I did it 3 or 4 times. It went from 0.55 to 1.2, and that's basically it. Now that sets up the throttle, and I think that's what really fixed my problem. Okay, by increasing the timing, that may have helped also, but main thing, like the guy in his article said, if you increase the timing, you really kind of get more power, a little better gas mileage out of it, and that's what I was shooting for. It appeared at my 10% normal timing, my gas mileage wasn't that bad, so I did advance it. And I'm not sure about that, if that really helped or not, but definitely the gas mileage has come up about 3 gallons more, and it is a little peppier. Okay. So now, I'm in this diagnostic mode still. I'm at 0%. I'm really done with the test. I'm done with everything. Okay? And what you can do, you can either hit the auto button or you can just kill the power. Okay? So if I hit the auto button, that just gets out of diagnostic mode. Okay? And then if you go back out here, that has put the throttle back to where it was earlier. See, it's come out, it's off the minimum, and it's at 0.67 volts. That's just where the car thinks that it wants to be right now. Okay, it's not a big deal. But like I say, by having that minimum air or minimum idle, as long as you have your idle speed controller working and everything's running, this will control the speed of the car. This will control the idle. Okay, now I've seen some cars, I've seen some videos out there trying to figure this problem out, that people's actually taken that off, so they don't have an idle speed control motor anymore. So then they have to adjust their minimum air or minimum RPM idle screw. So here, what I guess according to the guy's article, what this is doing is this is from the original, it's kind of shifting the 0 and the span, is shifting it down, and it's kind of finding a happy medium, and it prevents the sail on problem, because the sail on, somehow it didn't like that feedback, that voltage, and it would try to keep the idle up too fast, and somehow it didn't fit some curve, you know, speed of the engine to speed of the car curve, and it made it too high, and when you let off on the gas, it would just kind of keep going. So since I've done this now, like out here on the road, I mean, when I let off on the gas, it lets off, I mean, it starts slowing down immediately. Okay, so that appears to have fixed my sail on coasting problem. Also, well, I forgot to mention too, whoops, this was a biggie, should have done this at the beginning, sorry folks. Okay, go to the end of this video. You have to do this again. But another key thing that happened to this thing, and it wasn't really that dirty, but at the very beginning here, what I had to do was clean my throttle plate. Okay, so yep, I forgot that, sorry. I'll try to put that at the beginning of the video here, so we'll have it at the beginning and the end. But what I did is I used some Seafoam throttle plate cleaner and some just regular old throttle plate cleaner, but I used this Seafoam top engine cleaner. So what you do, you get the car up, you get it up to temperature, and you spray that stuff down into the throttle body, and you keep spraying it as it's running, okay? You let it run and run and run, and finally use up the whole bottle, and you let it all get sucked in there. And then you turn the car off and let it set for about, I let it set for 10 minutes. It says 5 minutes on the bottle. But then I started the car up, and I did this outside the garage, okay? And man, it just white smoke everywhere. I mean, and it smoked for probably 20 minutes. I mean, nasty, bad white smoke. So anyway, it's kind of, you know, I guess getting rid of that carbon and stuff. So that, you know, worked out well. Just follow the directions on the can and do it outside. Don't do it in the garage, well ventilated. Another thing I use too is this carbon throttle body cleaner, Valvoline. It's what Royal King had. And I cleaned it super, super well. You know, I held open and I cleaned the bottoms of the plates. You know, I did not take the throttle body off. I just did it all with a little brush, and I sprayed it in there. Took a brush, cleaned it, and then I let I sopped up the excess down on the bottom with a paper towel. And anyway, got that real clean. And then what you have to do, according to the procedure, and this other guy kind of agreed, and I guess the way you're supposed to do this, it's kind of iffy. You read different parts, but you come here to the battery after you clean your throttle plate. You take your negative, disconnect your battery, and you let it set. It set for like 5 to 10 minutes. I let it set for about 30 minutes while I ate lunch. And I came back and I hooked the battery back up. And then basically what you do is you start the car and you let it run for around, one article said 13 minutes. In the manual it says to run it till your engine temperature is over 70 degrees. With that diagnostics panel you can go in and read your temperature. But at any rate, I let it run for probably 15 minutes. And then all the great idle learn procedure is you just take the car and you keep it running the whole time, okay? You put your brake on, you put it in drive, you just sit here for 1 minute, and I did it about 2 minutes, and you let it run, and then you turn your air conditioner on and make sure the compressor comes on, let it run. Here again it says 1 minute, I let it do 2 minutes, and then you turn it off, put it back into park, and turn the car off. So somehow it kind of learns, you know, you don't have to do anything to, you don't have to do anything to the diagnostic panel. You just unhook the battery, leave it off for a while, hook the battery back up, run the car, get it up to temperature, put it in drive with the brake on, run it for at least 1 minute, and then run the air conditioner for at least 1 minute, shut it down, and it kind of learns. So what it's doing is trying to adjust the idle based on different loads, and I think really all it's doing is keeping the RPM somewhere around 600 RPMs, and it also is learning about this throttle position, because what it does is it builds up carbon. Your throttle won't go all the way closed, so it knows to readjust that voltage feedback signal. So anyway, you've got to clean the throttle plate. You got to do the relearn procedure. You set the timing to wherever you want to set it. 10%, 10 degrees, 12 degrees, 14, whatever you want to do, wherever you feel comfortable. And what I did too is I set mine at 14, and I went out and I drove it before I did any of the rest of this. And I made sure I didn't get any pinging. So I was just flooring it, driving it up and down some hills. Made sure at 14 I didn't get any pinging, and I used premium gas. Okay. So then I came back and then I adjusted the, I did the zero adjustment, the fully retracted, for the idle speed control and set the throttle position sensor for the 0.55. And well, then I had to adjust the idle to 450 RPMs. Then I set the throttle position sensor to the 0.55 with a fully retracted, setting on the minimum idle screw, and then I extended it and set it to 1.2 volts, and that seemed to do it. Like I say, the mileage is better, and cleaning the throttle plate, which it wasn't real dirty, it was pretty clean anyway, that helped. Doing this procedure, I think it appears to have helped the gas mileage. I'm not sure, the jury's still out on that, but I tell you what, it definitely fixed the sail-on coasting problem. So if you have a sail-on coasting problem, that fix there, this technical service bulletin 9344, maybe if you get your hands on it, might even tell you something better. But watch this video, hopefully it'll help you. I hope I explained it pretty good. The guy on that Cadillac forum's much better than me, but at least this gives you some visual. So that's what I did. It definitely helped the sail-on problem, and that's all I have for now. Thanks for watching.